In this driving lesson video, we're going to look at when is the appropriate time to change gears. And we're also going to examine how we can change gears in an eco-friendly, efficient and smooth manner. But firstly, you must know how to handle the gear stick for each gear change. So when I'm going to first gear, I make sure I put the clutch in fully and I move the gear stick over and up to first. It won't go into reverse gear because there's a button there that releases reverse gear. So that's first gear. Now if I'm going to second gear, I must make sure I keep the gear stick to the left. If I don't keep it to the left, it'll pop back over like that and it'll probably go into fourth gear. Okay, so I'm going to go to second gear now, so keep the gear stick to the left and push down to the bottom left, and there's second gear. Now I'm going to go to third gear, and I must have a little pause in the middle as I go up to third. So I'm going to take that gear stick like this, up to the middle, little pause, and up to third I go. Having that little pause in the middle allows the gear stick to settle, and then it's just a case of pushing it straight up to third. Going to fourth then, it's just simply a matter of going straight down. So straight down, like that. No need to go left or right, just straight down. And fifth then, again, a little pause in the middle is advisable. So up, little pause in the middle, then just push it over like that and up to fifth. And that's how we go to fifth gear. Now let's look at going down the gears. So fifth to fourth. I have a little pause in the middle again. Here we go. Little pause and down she goes. Fourth to third, reasonably straightforward, just straight up. Like that, straight line. Third to second, this could be the most important one because this could be the one you'll be doing approaching junctions. So again, a little pause in the middle, and you must make sure you keep the gear stick to the left after you pause. So down, little pause, keep the gear stick to the left, and down to the bottom left for second gear. And if you do need to go to first gear then to take off, you must make sure you give the gear stick a little push to the left like that as you go up, and then she'll go into first gear without too much problems. But you must keep it to the left, otherwise, as I said, it'll pop over into the middle and you could end up in third gear or fourth gear by mistake. So now that we've established how to use the gear stick, let's talk about going up the gears. I want to share with you a general guide in relation to speed about going up the gears. So you would start off in first gear and you would hope to get to second gear between about 18 and 20 kilometers per hour. Then you would look to go to third gear at about 30 kilometers, maybe a little before. Approximately 45 to 50 kilometers per hour you should be in fourth, and then 70 kilometers plus you should be getting to fifth gear. By following this guide, it is more eco-friendly and you will use less petrol or diesel. So you would normally start off in first gear. Second gear can be used for junctions, ramps and roundabouts, and as a climbing gear on the way up to third and fourth. Third can be used for certain town situations, so if you're going a little bit fast for second gear, but not quite fast enough to reach fourth gear, third is a nice in-between gear. Like here, for example, I'm coming onto a downhill bend here, so a third would be suitable, especially as I'm approaching a roundabout just around the bend. Fourth gear is for more open roads and for better roads, so where there's no parked cars and no potholes, fourth is best, around about 50 kilometers. And then you would normally say fifth gear for 70 kilometers plus, like on main roads or motorways. Remember, moving the gear stick is only one part of the gear change. You need to know how to come off the clutch as well. So if you're going up the gears, you should come off the clutch like this, half quick, half slow. So you'd come off the clutch quick for the first 50% of your uplift and then slow for the remaining part. This helps get the gear change done reasonably quickly and efficiently, but the slow part at the end helps keep the gear change smooth. Try remember to be that little bit extra careful with the clutch in the lower gears. So try and come off a little bit slower, say going from third to second for example, because the clutch is a lot more sensitive in the lower gears in comparison to the higher gears, like for example going from fourth to fifth gear. If you are changing up the gears while at the same time climbing a hill, as you can see here, you're better off adding 10 kilometers to the time in which you would normally change up gears. So if you would normally go to third at about 30 kilometers, you would do it on the uphill at about 40 kilometers. It's better to give it that extra bit of power so the car doesn't struggle when you come off the clutch. because anytime you're going up a hill, you need that extra power to make sure the gear change is efficient and proper. So in summary, if you are going up the gears, you should do so as soon as is practical. But at the same time, plan ahead and read the situation ahead, because there's no point in speeding up and going up the gears if you have a speed bump or roadworks ahead. But generally, try and get up the gears before the engine gets loud, not because the engine gets loud. Now let's talk about going down the gears. The most important aspect of going down the gears by far is the necessity to brake first. So you wouldn't just put the clutch in and drop down gears and then come off the clutch. You have to brake first. Get the speed down first and then the gears follow. So if you're in 4th gear and you want to go down to 3rd gear, you should brake first and get the speed down below 30 and then go to 3rd gear. This will give you more control because the car is slowing down early and gradually, and it will help avoid any jumps on the car. What will also help avoid jumps or jerks is coming off the clutch slowly. While I said a few minutes ago that you should come off the clutch half quick, half slow when going up the gears, when you're dropping down gears, it's entirely different. So if you're dropping down the gears, like 3rd to 2nd, for example, you must come off the clutch slowly the whole way. And this will lead to a smooth and gentle gear change. When going down the gears, it's also very important that you don't coast. Coasting is when you spend too long on the clutch, and it can cause the car to speed up, and it kind of gives a bit of a freewheeling sensation, especially when you're going downhill. It could cause you to lose control and ultimately have to end up braking suddenly when you get near a junction. So more brake, less clutch is the best way to look at it. I have made a video on the dangers of coasting. You'll see a link at the top, but I'll also leave a link in the description below. If you are travelling downhill, it is advisable not to go up a gear, or perhaps drop one gear depending on the speed and depending on the situation. If you stay in a lower gear going downhill, the engine braking kicks in more, so you have more natural control of the car thanks to the engine braking. If you decide to go up a gear while travelling down a steep hill, the coasting and the higher gear could cause the car to speed up excessively, which is what you don't want. So usually staying in the same gear or dropping a gear can give you more control if you're going down a steep hill. When dropping down gears, you could go down one by one, or you could block change, like 5th to 3rd, or go from 4th to 2nd. Whichever option you choose doesn't really matter. The main thing is that you brake early and gradually, and when you're changing down the gears, you come off the clutch slowly. This will give you a smooth, gentle gear change and help you to be in more control. I normally advise learners to go down one by one at the start, because although it's a bit of a challenge, I feel it helps get them more in tune with the car, gives them a better feel for the clutch and the gears, and usually after a bit of getting used to, it usually works out fine. Alternatively, you could skip from 4th to 2nd, which is just as fine, and I would advise that, especially if you're stuck for time. Like let's say you've forgotten to go down to 3rd gear and you're still in 4th, there's no point in trying to go down the gears one by one if you're stuck for time, so just skip from 4th to 2nd. So whichever option you choose, it's not important. The main thing is that you brake and come off the clutch slowly and gradually. Before we finish, I'd like to share with you some of the more common mistakes that I find learner drivers make in relation to gear changes. So in a lot of cases, an inexperienced driver would forget to take off in 1st gear, or they would forget to take a junction or a roundabout in 2nd gear. It's no big deal. The car will probably struggle and it may even conk out if you get the gears mixed up. But try not to get too excited or stressed if the car conks out or stalls. Just pull up the handbrake, go into 1st gear and you'll be fine. Other mistakes learners make is trying to force the gear stick if they become a bit flustered. Try not to force the gear stick by moving it too hard. It's better to be gentle and you're more likely to go into the correct gear then. Also, avoid looking down at the gear stick, as I find a lot of learner drivers do in the early stages. You must keep your eyes on the road at all times. Looking down could cause you to swerve and lose position on the road. So that brings us to the end of this video on gear changing. If you enjoyed it, you will also enjoy these two videos here. One is also on changing gear, and the other is on the dangers of coasting, which I touched on earlier in this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon for another driving lesson video.